So, today we have a distinguished guest. I apologize for my laryngitis and voice. Number one, our distinguished guest is not Maria Callas, and I can sing today like Maria Callas. But we have Elliot McVeigh, and Elliot is, we're happy to have him.
Right. I know this is, I'm doing one of Chris' experiments right now. Can I just drive? No.
Don't experiment backwards. Experiment. Anyway, Elliot received his Ph.D. from the University of Toronto, and then after that went to Johns Hopkins, where he spent most of his, I would think most of his academic life. He then moved from Johns Hopkins to the NIH, actually National Heart-Lung Blood Institute, where he is currently doing research in MRI. Elliot is one of the pioneers in cardiac MRI imaging, in particular in tagged MRI, which allows to non-invasively image and quantitate strain and changes in heart. So we're happy to have him. He's also a good friend and a pretty good skier. So welcome to
Thanks a lot, Aaron. Thanks very much for inviting me to come and talk today. So as Aaron said, I've done a lot of cardiac mechanics work, cardiac tagging, but today we'll just look at that briefly. And for most of what we're going to look at is how real-time MR or new, faster MR imaging is being used to guide therapy and surgery. And this work, compendium of the work of many people. And I'll try on each slide to acknowledge each person. They should be at the bottom of the slide. But from Hopkins and the NIH, staff scientists at the NIH are absolutely wonderful. Mike Guttman is coming in here to thank us. And large number of graduate students and postdocs, and my colleague Robert Letterman, support surgeon, Robert from the Interventional Cardiology. First motivation. This is fluoroscopy of a catheter that's coming up the aorta into the left ventricle and making an injection into the tissue of the left ventricle. Very nice in-plane resolution. Obviously, a projection image doesn't really have resolution in the third dimension. You can see the device quite nicely, but you cannot see the tissue in the heart. Why do we want to do MR-guided interventions? Well, it's because when you're doing MR, and this is real-time MR, and this is the catheter, an injection catheter, you can see the tissue that you're treating. You can see the effect you're having on that tissue. And what we've done also is develop devices so that you can actually see the device in the MR scan. So we'll go into the details of that. But the big message is you can see the tissue you're treating. As an example, in electrophysiology, if you're trying to ablate tissue with radio frequency energy, what you can do is you can place a catheter, which is essentially an RF antenna, and put it, there's a catheter right here, an ablation catheter in the front of the right ventricle. And with that catheter, you can pulse radio frequency energy into that, say at 50 watts for 30 seconds, and that will heat up the tissue around the catheter and destroy that tissue. So if there's ecstasy generated from that tissue, it will eliminate that ecstasy or block waves of activation. And so the exciting thing is if you do this in an MR scanner, after you've done the ablation, and you do either T1 imaging with a contrast agent on board or T2 imaging straight up, you can see the size of the ablation. So you can then titrate the therapy interactively, make a burn, and then look, see the size of the burn, move the catheter, make another burn. So you could make a line of burn. This shows that electrograms from that catheter pre and post ablation. This is something I did at Hopkins, Colorado, and California a few years ago, and they continue to do this for making the system. While you have a patient or an animal or whoever it is in the scanner and you're doing some kind of therapy, you can look at the function of the heart very accurately. This is a movie that's called Myocardial Tagging. What happens is that end-diastole, or say a QRS complex, with the QRS is going to trigger a set of radio frequency and radiant pulses in the scanner. And what they're going to do is cause parallel lines of magnetization in this animal. The liver, the animal, the left ventricle, parallel planes actually through that animal will be saturated so that no signal will come from those planes for about half a second. Okay. So we make a set of parallel planes this way and parallel planes that way, horizontal and vertical, and then image. Because those planes are tagged to the tissue, the protons in that tissue, when the tissue moves, you can see that motion. You can measure that motion precisely. So it's like putting hundreds of fiducial markers in the left ventricle and then watching it move. So you can measure the radial thickening very precisely, or the circumferential shortening of that muscle very precisely. And when you make that measurement, let's say circumferential shortening, when the heart contracts, obviously it starts with a cylinder like this, roughly, and then it contracts down and the circumference gets shorter. And that happens locally. At each point in the myocardium, you measure that circumferential shortening. So when you do that and color code it, you can make maps like this, which are mechanical activation maps. So that basically the dynamics and mechanics of that muscle and how it contracts. What the color code means, yellow means stretching. So it means the circumferential distance is being increased, actually stretching out. Blue means circumference is shortened and the heart is contracting. It's all the same dog, actually, in this case. Paced from 3 different locations. In this case, we're pacing the atrium, and so the activation comes from the Purkinje system and lights up in the heart left ventricle. This is the left ventricle of the heart. The green dot is the middle of the septum, so the artery is over here. And you can see this nice, uniform sort of onset of short. If it goes blue, that means it's contracting. In this case, we're pacing on the 3 walls of the left ventricle. Remember, this is the septum, so the artery here. 3 walls. So we're showing on a pacing lead there. And you can see the mechanical shortening. This is just like WPW, early activation at this point on the 3 walls. So it shortens early here, and that shortening then moves around the heart. And it pre-stretches the septum. So you see it's pre-stretch and contraction. You move the pacer over here to inside the right ventricle right here. It's the same pattern, just a different origin of activation. So you can precisely measure basically the progression of the mechanics of the heart, the asynchronous activation. This has been used considerable effect and benefit when looking at people and evaluating for TRT, which is a type of therapy in which you basically want to resynchronize the heart by pacing. So you can somebody who has their left bundle. So this is a dog heart paced from the atrium. So this dog has had one side of the Purkinje system eradicated with RF, such that it has a left bundle. So you can see the late activation here on the 3 wall. When you do biventricular pacing on the channel, you can resynchronize that heart. And the color code again, remember, is circumferential shortening. This isn't electrical activation. This is actually the mechanics of the heart beginning to shorten. It looks a lot like an electrical map. They're analogous, but the blue means shortening. So we resynchronize the heart there. And so a number of papers were published with Dave Taft, myself, and others looking at using this type of MR imaging to evaluate those patients and resynchronization therapy. If we look now, the other thing that MR can do is continue beautiful images of infarct. So this is a post-mortem MR of a pig infarct. And in this animal, what was done is we took the mechanical data of the shortening of the heart and the stretching of the ventricle. We then did open heart surgery and put an electrode sock on the surface of this heart. And this is post-infarct. This is mechanically done on the surface of this heart. And this is the electrode array that corresponds to these little silver electrodes here. You can actually make MR images through this electrode array, which is quite amazing to me that it works anyway it does. And you can look at both the electrical activation and the mechanical behavior in the same part, and its behavior with respect to where it is between parts of the brain. So Hiroshi Yoshikaga in the lab focused on a heroic set of experiments where he did the mechanics, the mapping, digitized the electrodes, took out the infarct and looked at its relative spatial orientation with respect to both the electrograms from these electrodes and the mechanics. A lot of stuff between there and here. And here's one of the interesting data plots, and this is ARI in different parts of the heart, and parts that have an infarct in it, versus the amount of pre-stretch that piece of myocardium went through. So you can measure with the mechanics at each point how much pre-stretch before it starts to contract that piece of tissue goes through. With 25% pre-stretch, the ARI is longer than in those regions where we have little pre-stretch. So it's very nice correlation. Early data, we'll see if this pans out So, there's the motivation for using MR in cardiac research. What we'd like to do is speed up the acquisition so that MR is something like an ultrasound, so that you can just take 30 frames a second and look at the heart while you're doing something. In order to do that, one development that's occurred in magnetic resonance is using a large coil array around the patient to reduce the amount of data that is required to make a full picture of the device. And let me describe this coil array is something that Pete Kellman in my lab and rapid biomedical worked out to the heart as a good geometry to do this type of accelerated imaging. I'll show you how this works. If we want to make an image, an MR image of a patient's chest like this, so here's the left ventricle, the right ventricle, the chest wall. And in order to make that image, we have to take 60 data acquisitions. Okay, each one of these acquisitions is an echo of the wave encoding for each echo. What it does is it fills in the Fourier space of this picture. So the raw data is in fact the Fourier transform of this picture, and that's the raw data. What happens if we say, we have to go faster, let's just take every other line here. So skip each other line, and we'll just take half the data, so we can get it twice as fast. The picture comes out looking like this. Okay. And this is classic aliasing in signal system. You can create transform in this direction, and you're undersampled by a factor of 2, therefore you get a rapid fold over alias mark. If you're undersampled by a factor of 3, you get 3 goes through, and these things get closer and closer together to your sample. The interesting thing is if you look at, so here's the business end of this image. I'm interested in this part. This junk here is overlapping what we're trying to look at. So that junk is supposed to be okay. But we know if there's a little coil here, and it only acquires data from here, it really doesn't contribute a heck of a lot from stuff up here. We know basically how to reposition this signal back down here. Okay, so it becomes basically a linear algebra problem, looking for the least squared solution for getting this image back from this, once we know where those coils are. And we do. We can take reference images, and for each one of those little coils, we get a field map of the coils, and we feed this into that inverse problem, and it tells us how to reconstruct that picture with the code. So this is called Stent phase array combining, where you take these alias images combined with this an inverse matrix developed from these maps here and get back your original picture. The way we do it is we get those coil maps, or the images of the coil sensitivity from the many coils that we have, by doing what's called, we jitter this data. We take every other line, say, but in time we jitter this up and down. And what that does is it makes the artifact flicker. Okay? So if this flickers, we can then filter that out with the temporal filter. And what we get is a set of images in which the artifacts are gone, flickering. These are temporally blurred, these pictures. Okay? So they have no artifact. But we can get the coil sensitivity for each one of these pictures and feed that back to the phased array monitor and get the final image. The reason we want to do this in a time-efficient manner is because when you're doing real-time MR guidance, you're changing the scan cycle. So you're pushing around and you have to say, what are my new coil coefficients? You have to measure them this way, get them back into the respawn, and get them the same optimal. So the final result is that if you take half the data and do sense rate 2, with this type of field of data, you can go at about 15 frames a second. You can hear the patient lying in the scanner breathing. You can see the diaphragm coming in and out of the slides here. So there's no gating, no breath hold. And this imaging the activity. If you take every fourth echo, or rate 4, 30 frames a second, you get images that look like this. There's a little residual flicker, a little artifact, didn't fuck out with the inverse problem fairly well, and it was noise because you've taken a shorter amount of time to take that data. But still, it looks pretty good for real-time imaging. I mean, if you want to guide therapy and things like that, then this is acceptable in your quality. And the wonderful thing about this is you don't need to create a state. Don't need to ask the patient to right. And one thing I've learned all my years of doing cardiac MR imaging is don't cardiac gate. It just causes problems. Okay? It just causes problems. If you can image without gating, you're good. So here's another application of this real-time imaging. So this is the patient's EKG. They're obviously throwing echography every other beat. We're still picking up very nice image quality. And if you're trying cardiac gate to MR, any type of data acquisition motion, any more data, and your EKG looks like this, these pictures look like crap. And they just do not work. So this is the way to take data in MR when you're doing cardiac. The interesting thing is, the more we're looking at now is just as soon as the patient gets in there and just start taking data, just take all this, take the EKG, good enough, take these pictures, they're not super high quality, but then use this EKG to take echoes and re-bin them together to make really pretty pictures after retrospect. If you've got, I don't know, take 100 heartbeats. Now you just go through those 100 heartbeats, take the best data out of all of those 100 heartbeats and make one nice movie. And so that's the philosophy. And the other thing you can do is this is an ancient exercise device. These are images that are obtained while she's set. Okay. So yeah, she's moving around and everything like that, but you get reasonable image quality and it's during exercise. Okay. So she keeps on pedaling. You can see the heart rate is going up progressively. And so we're pursuing this mode of stress with a more modern ergometer. The interesting thing also about this scanner, that's the heart rate. The interesting thing about this scanner is a wide board, so you can get very nice throws. So how do you go faster or take this to its absurd and well, at Melanie Schmidt at MD8, we're doing very well. They've made this geometry of coils for innocent chest at 128 millimeters. So each one of these coils has a 3 amp on it and a cable taking the signal out. goes with one receiver. So we have a scanner with 128 receivers, and you get 128 images coming out of there, and you use those, as I showed you, that Stent combining to get fast images. To use this thing really efficiently, you really want to do 3D images. You want to accelerate your acquisition in this direction and accelerate it for at least 2 to get to a factor of 10 increase data. If all you're doing is a slice, you can get it about a factor of 3 increase in data acquisition, 3 to 4. But it doesn't really matter that I have coils down here as my slice. If it's a slice through the heart like this, I don't care if it's very easy to go. It doesn't matter. If you have great flexibility, essentially what you should be able to do is got all these coils, pick the slice interactively, and then the system decides which coils to choose. Okay, the relatively no slice. The following, I'll use this set of coils. So in the early days of developing interventional MR, so here's a Sonata, and this is a Siemens kitted up hospital. We have 2 of these interventional labs. We have the standard fluoro system and the table in which the patient sits on rails. You can go straight up to the scanner, you can move the patient between the MR and the X-ray. So there's certain procedures that you can partially do under MR, but there's certain devices that only work under X-ray to do that procedure. Also, the interventional cardiologist they want some kind of emergency egress situation. So if things go wrong here, they can just come back out into an X-ray part and all their devices work. Because naturally, some devices, specifically catheters with the stainless steel braid in the catheter, do not work at all in MR. Like they stay straight the whole time, right? You bring in the magnet and just straighten up. You let go, they fly into the magnet. So Mike Gutman, the guy in our lab who's designed all of these real-time systems that he's done 4 of them now on various platforms. So he's got all of the Siemens platforms for using on GEs and that. So he nowadays is quite nice because you have these wideband Ethernet linked up to the computer that runs the scanner, and so his computer can talk across that. So he feeds commands to the scanner through that, and he feels data from the scanner to his own reconstruction using that T-Stent method or whatever we're doing. So here, the physicians are standing. They're going to do a catheter procedure, and they want to look at the MR and the catheter at the same time. They're looking at it. There's projectors behind the screen, and they project Mike's images here, his reconstruction, the standard Siemens interface, physiological parameters up here, and they're talking to Mike through voice-activated microphones. They have headphones on. Everybody's talking at nice low volume. They're yelling at each other. And the device that the physician uses once inserted into the femoral artery and up to the heart. This is one such device that fits the injection catheter. And so the business end here has a needle, and there's a syringe on the end of that to inject whatever you'd like to inject for tissue therapeutic use. There is also on the shaft of this catheter, there's a thin wire that acts as an MR receiver coil, so that we can see where the shaft, the entire shaft catheter is. There's also a little coil around the tip that's fed into its own receiver. It can be reconstructed with a separate color to show you where the tip. And the receiver is plugging down here. There's a little preamp that plugs on the end here, and then goes off to their receivers. So this was built in collaboration with Boston years ago. And when you're manipulating devices, it's really nice to have this type of view. So what Mike has done is he can do real time in 2 planes simultaneously, and put those up, and the physician can look, see where the device is, tilt it, so look at the short axis here, tilt the heart up and see where the device is in this plane. You can turn this one off such that the frame rate of this is doubled. So it's a very nice interactive guidance device. So let me turn this frame on again. So this maybe that's the Sandy, Dick, how much revolve. And this is what this is low because we've got multiple planes running simultaneously. This is known as Sonata. This is the old version. But what you can see is there's the red dot there where the device is, and it's very dramatic well. And so there's also a yellow dot that might put on interactively as a target. And that target is visible in 3D when you rotate the plane around and you're trying to manipulate your device to hit the target. Where it is. And what they're doing is making injections into the part around an impart. And might at this time use the Stent scanner when it's outside. So what they're looking at is something like this, where you have that catheter, the shaft of the catheter is shown as a green line all the way down. That's the tip of the catheter. They've done a little test injection of gadolinium into the myocardium. You can see it quite brightly there. Well, I'll stop it there. And so they've got good purchase into the myocardium. There's an infarct here that they're trying to inject mesenchymal stem cells around. And the stem cells are blown up in the medium with little plastic spheres in them called bang particles. And these particles have bits of iron in them, and they also have fluorescence ion so that you can track the cells at a later time. Logically with fluorescence, and also on the MR. But what I want you to watch is this thing to the end of that needle in the myocardium there. As the injection occurs, bang, there's the injection. You can see that there's a very dark spot where that volume of cells has been injected. There's an iron that the cells now carry with these particles. They take up these particles. So they have this iron inside them. As they go into the tissue, they create this ligament void. So you can see how broad the injection is and where to move the needle to make the next. Also, Mike has worked on doing interactive coronary injections, and so the catheter engages the coronary there, lights up the coronary, and then lights up the perfusion bed in the left ventricle for that vessel. So there's the end of the catheter, the coronary, and the perfusion bed. Pretty nice. And that's this is all done interactive. So one application for this, and let's go back to why we have the X-ray as well. Louis Gutierrez, when he was doing his Ph.D. thesis, worked with James Malonzer and Robert Letterman in making a system for doing combined X-ray MR imaging. So interventions that do both of them. And those of you who do MR know that the image itself, the MR image is slightly distorted. So it's distorted by the magnetic field and by the non-uniformity of the gradient. So you need to correct that distortion. Also, X-ray images are distorted by a number of things, like the pincushion effect on this image intensifier, the magnetic field is here, the magnetic field of the scanner, because you're next to the scanner, so it's going to bend the beam. So he does those geometric corrections. He puts fiducial markers on the outside of the patient. So they're visible on X-ray as these dark spots here, and on the MR they're visible as bright things. And so what he can do is take the MR data, digitize where those markers are, and then put the X-ray space and the MR space together to get fusion of those two different modalities. Here's an example of, it seems very early on when he was developing this, it's a really nice case for why this is required. So this patient showed up in Robert's lab, and they asked him to biopsy the mass in the right ventricle. You can see the mass is quite elevated. This big cell right there. So they wanted to know what type of cell that was to go in and biopsy the ventricle. So under fluoroscopy, this is what the biopsy catheter looks like. Applied some catheter, and really, you know, you can see the catheter quite well. It has a little jaws there that just takes the tissue, takes it out for sample. You can't see where the hell the heart is, right? So you can't see what you're biopsying. Here are the fiducial markers that Lewis has on the patient. In MR, it's pretty obvious where that catheter is. So in lieu of using MR, because the biotome catheter, this guy is not MR compatible, it has metal in it that causes problems. So you go to the gold standard for doing cardiac biopsies, which is intracardiac echo. And on the intracardiac echo, you can see the biotome catheter, and you can see the tissue distribution of the body. So apparently that's. So they did the biopsy, they did 4 biopsies under this imaging guidance, and they all came back normal. So, problem. So now, what Lewis did, this was before he got it working in real time, so he could actually map this into the space during the biopsy. But here's the MR images, and after he's done the geometric correction, and looking at the endocardial surface of the RV and the mass itself, map that into the space of the pleura. Here's the biopsy catheter, so it looks okay from that angle. And when you look at it from a different angle, here, you see the end of the biopsy catheter where this biopsy was taken compared to this is the mass. So this is wrong. So if you look at again, let's look at the mass here, and here's I'll go in the RV, here's the segmented out separately. Now, we look at the biopsy catheter again on view with that, and look where it is, right there. So the biopsy was taken of that catheter, and, you know, on the intracardiac. So, the left manipulate the biopsy catheter with the MR catheter, then you can just do it over MR. Hit the other is, look, the biopsy catheter is going to be faster, and then this should be done in real time, which is where this project is going now, so that they can actually take MR surfaces, bring them into the fluoro space, and when they rotate the fluorogantry, the MR surfaces rotate with it, and they can see on. This is a new scanner that we got. It's called a 3 and we were going to get a 3 Tesla scanner to do high resolution interventions in the back, you know, probably the peripheral vascular. But then this thing came out. It seems strange company. I don't know if you guys everyone here works with Siemens and can get any information out of it, but I had no idea this thing was coming. And said, oh, you have to go up to New York to do this scan. And well, okay, you know, go out there, and literally like on 7th Avenue, there's this trailer on the road, right? And it's a big, beautiful trailer. And it has a ramp coming out, and in front of this ramp are like all of these famous high-priced New York cardiologists standing out on the road waiting to go in. The weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. And that's our good line, you know, is everybody. And we go in and this scan thing comes up, right? And it's great. I mean, it's a 70-centimeter bore. It's a short little system. I jumped inside and looking around, and when you lie down, the top is about like this, you know, really far away. Right, so it's a 3T, which would come out to about here. Right, let's just buy one of these, and we did, and we embarked on trying to do interventions in this system where you can directly manipulate the thing that you're looking at on the scanner, because you can reach into isosome and manipulate something while you're imaging. So it's just, you know, it's no longer than this, it's shorter than this table. And so isosome is right here, right? So you can manipulate stuff. And it's scanning away, it has a cylindrical set of gradients, and so you lose about 25%. that's nothing compared to the other interventions that are out there. And if you look at the space, you've got 3 robots. You know, if you wanted to do robots. But, you know, if you just want to climb in and manipulate things, you can do it. So, the application that we've gone after first is to try and put clinical prosthetic aortic valves into position under MRI. Okay. So these are just valves off the shelf. Okay. Hold them up, stick them into the apex, and put them in place. This key quarterback, cardiac surgeons use doing this. This is the introducer, and what happens is you make a small subxiphoid incision, you expose the apex of the heart, so the apex is sitting on the right. Make a quick incision on that, you put a first string one way and a first string the other way, counter out, and then you have this trocar comes with a big spike in it. First comes out of the package. And you go and you put it into the apex of the heart. Okay? It's real brave heart stuff. And it's like that, and if you watch it, you don't stand there. And as soon as it goes in, you pinch down those sections, right? And it stays tight. Through this, we're going to insert our finely machined introducer that I'll show you. I think I have pictures of the valve. So here's the valve. It just comes out of the jar. The SPV valve right off the shelf. It's porcelain. And what he does is a platinum stent, platinum iridium stent, and goes back to the outside of the valve and prints it down onto a balloon catheter. Okay. So it's all printed down, it's going on, and pushed back into our, high-tech introducer, which is a plastic tube. And inside the plastic tube, we have a nylon rod, which has obviously a hole in the center for the balloon. So it's quite stiff, nylon rod, and you can manipulate both the angle of this thing is the rotational angle of the valve, and you can push it back. And here he is gaining access to the apex of the heart. This is a peg. Here's the screen back here. And this is what he's looking at on the screen. This is, again, Mike Huffman's reconstruction with all of these acceleration techniques and whatnot, so that he can get real-time cardiac input while he's manipulating the valve and fit it in place. I'll show you how he does that. So it's not much of a reach. And here's Mike, again, driving the system. So he talks to Mike and says, I'll push it a couple of centimeters, or I want to go back to this view, or whatever, and Mike just obliges and does it in real time. It's fantastic. Voice activation hard with no errors. Okay? So this is a two-person job. The surgeon is not somebody else. So initially, this is what the heart looks like. In its long axis view, right ventricle, left ventricle. Here's the annulus, here's the aorta. And this is what it looks like after the trocar is in place. Now this is actually kind of a small shape for this trocar on the side fairly well. But, the heart beats like a champ with this thing. Up in the bottom. And here's the aortic annulus. So this is the heart. You want to put in a valve right here. And the valve itself has a guide wire coming through the center, and also another wire tied to the outside so that you can orient it. So you see that little green dot? I'll see it again. The yellow dot is put on by Mike as the aortic annulus. Two blue dots here, this one and this one, are the origins of the coronary artery. So basically the game here is to rotate the valve so that the green dot goes between the two blue dots. And when that happens, when the valve opens, it will not cover the two corners. Okay, because it has three posts. When you open the thing up, if those posts land on the coronary, it's a major problem. And the experiments over in the next 5 months. And so anyway, you can use these markers and manipulate that position. So this is what keeps looking at on the screen on another view of that to try and position the crowd. So here's the original aortic inlet. You can see the heart chunking away. The guide wire comes down into the aorta. And here, of course, goes through the valve into the aorta. This, you can see, is the stent valve back up in the introducer. Now he starts to push it down into place. And again, the heart's still chunking away. Gets it locked in the position after consulting those markers and everything to make sure it's in the right orientation. And then what he's going to do, because it's trimmed down and it has this stent, he's going to inflate a balloon and make that stent quite large so that it will expand to the size of the grip on the side of the annulus and sticking place. And so here the balloon is inflated. There's sort of gadolinium in here, it's at 100 to 1 or something like that, so you can see it really nicely. You don't really need to put that saturation on, but it might put it on there anyway. So now you can see the heart just kind of inflated. It's not obviously no blood coming out. You have to get the balloon out. The balloon comes down and pull that balloon catheter back. The guide wire comes back out the introducer, and then the heart starts beating and the valve works. And the higher resolution shows that the mitral valve is functional. So, pretty nice. This whole thing is about 90 seconds. As opposed to many hours of surgery and stitching and draining the heart. It's very complex. So what does it look like after that's done? Well, the first thing you do is you just take a few slices, inject some contrast, and make sure that the coronaries are providing blood to the heart so that they're not covered. So inject this contrast, perfuse the heart, great coronary flow. This is the mechanics of the left ventricle around the central plane after that valve is in. So the heart's beating vigorously, everything's at hunky-dory. This is the mechanics in a different plane, and you can see there's quite a lot of trauma. On the apex here is sewn back together, but beating away, we'll see what the chronic effects of this are as we do chronic experiments. The nice thing is that the mitral valve here is not included at all. You can see also either there's some kind of jet or there's shielding of the stent of the embolization going through the valve to nice dark blood leaking down through the valve. So we're now looking at putting these valves in and these well acute experiments and sending things back to the farm and take out those chronic. So just to sum up, MR is a great technique now, I think, for real-time imaging, specifically when you want to see what you're going to do with tissue. When you want to ablate tissue, inject something in tissue, do anything, but you want to see that effect. And I think, there's certain surgical procedures that we're going to be able to help. And the big holdup is in the devices. So all of the devices surgeons amongst the use for the interventional cardiologist have to review the redesign to work in magnetic fields. And that is a significant effort, which doesn't seem to be taken up by capture. So, really cool. Okay, thanks very much again for your attention. I'll take any questions.
Just wonder how you have no questions. I think you perform most of the surgery in the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I see the images, but no response to motion. How do you control that? So 90 seconds.
No, this respiratory motion there, they're breathing. Look, these ones might be restful, but this guy, he's breathing. Right? Oh yeah, right. Right, he's got to be breathing. Right? So watch the side.
Okay.
Right. The reason it doesn't look like it's restful is there's no breathing artifact.
Right.
The reason there's no breathing artifact is it's a manifest. So that's the whole key cardiac imaging.
So this is about 3 millimeter resolution.
Probably, yeah, something like that, 2.5, 3, and then the slice would be 7 millimeters.
And another question about your injection coronary, which is the contrast they use. What kind of contrast do you use?
Yeah, I mean, mix down 100 to 1.
100 to 1. Okay, yeah, we do something, and this is very aggressive.
Yeah.
Strong thing.
Yeah.
We do one, we think we can more than this, and this is the money.
With a higher concentration?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the T2 takes over. So they, you know, they
intercoronary infusion, correct?
yeah.
And we went down to like 2%, I think.
Oh yeah?
1%. And rather than the
oh, these are just straight up images.
yeah.
I'm just interested in you're willing to threshold it, because you're just interested in maximizing temporal resolution. What kind of frame rates are you looking at?
Well, that's an interesting question. If you let me scan it, for instance, you let me scan it for 12 minutes, I can give you 5 millisecond high resolution if it's a repeated event. Okay. So, you know, it's a strange question. I mean, yeah, if you want 200 millisecond delay of the images coming out and going across the screen, then it's about 30 frames a second, probably right. But if I have something that repeats over and over again,
You can analyze off.
yeah, you can get down to the millisecond. So you just take an echo every 2 milliseconds. 2 milliseconds. Well, then you can shift the whole thing. But that's it.
The latency is 200 milliseconds. The time that we transfer those data.
Yeah, and reconstruct it.
Send them back.
Do all that crap. It's about 100 months. Yeah, 2 months.
It might be broken. A big delay.
Yeah. That's all just data transferring and recording and then putting it up on the screen.
So one of the current biggest problems in invasive cardiology is electrophysiology where people do atrial ablation and the percutaneous procedure. And one of the problems, the complications, as you well know, is that because people don't exactly know where their camber is, you can completely clog up the pulmonary vein, you can completely burn a hole into the atrium, you can burn a hole from the atrium to the esophagus, both things. And so knowing exactly where your catheter is relative to the target that you're trying to isolate, which are the pulmonary vein arteries, is something that is particularly useful to conquer. Have you guys thought about that?
Well, you know, we confined a catheter to within the imaging resolution of MRI. The deal there is how do you, in real time, image where the pulmonary vein is. Because to get really good pulmonary vein imaging from MR, you usually get a contrast and get a cast, blood cast, with this bright light. To do real-time imaging of the pulmonary veins is slightly more challenging. And but I'm fairly confident you can do real-time imaging of a linear catheter. So all we have to do is put an active element all the way along the catheter, and look at that's what we know we can figure out from that. So, and then the next issue is, once you can confirm, can you image it in the atrial wall? There are some studies by Hannah Peters at Harvard showing very nice images of atrial ablation, burns in the atrium. So you see after contrast injection highlighted atrial. So far, post ablation. Well, I think everything's there. It just has to be put together in a good package. The device has to be built, that's what you did for the collection catheter with the marker. The biopsy image that I did, where we figure out how to image the pulmonary.
The reason I mentioned this is because those atrial ablation procedures on the fluoro can take 4 to 6 hours of fluoro time. And the amount of radiation cumulatively on everybody.
Right. That is the primary target, and Henry Halpern. So we're working together.
Yep. It shows some industry and I guess you saw the picture with Keith Rothbard. Is there any reason you prefer one to the other?
Stent? No, actually. It's the short answer. We can't see a reason right now to prefer one to the other. And Pete Kelman, who and I worked at Stent, he has worked with Mark Griswold on developing strap. And, graphene just needs a few more lines than either. So we're trying to figure out which one will be more stable over the long term. But right now, there's much.
Here in the next level,
at this stage, when you want to limit the catheter, how do you select? There's a primary plane that includes let's say, did you automatically you have coils on the catheter?
No, absolutely not.
When you take a projection from one orientation.
Basically, if you lose it, so say I'm looking at a catheter like this, and it goes away. Okay, so it moves out of the imaging plane at 7 millimeters, it fell out. Okay, so out, shoots critical plane. So what you can do is turn off the surface. Okay,
yes.
Stick it up the slice, and then just look at the signal from the catheter. And you can see it. Go, oh, there it is.
And then you say, we got to jump.
And that's a projection. Okay? And that we can do with a button press. And then it goes, but, and it's projection theory. And then when Mike has projection tool on, the other cool thing that he's done is if you then take the 3D view and rotate it, you take the gradients and rotate it.
You rotate them.
Yeah. So you look with the scanner from different angles.
Just a question. Do you perform any coin and discovery procedure with using coin stuff? Or do you think it's technically ready to use?
I don't know if they will ever use it actually.
Coronary, the thing about the coronaries is, other than CTO, other than trying to pass a blocked coronary, all you want to do is put in a stent, and you actually can see where the coronary is. Fluoro's. I mean, it's a 1D object. You squirt dye in it, and you can see it. Right? And so it's useful.
But you want to tap the right the back, the IMUA.
But it's really trail. I mean, we're like, MR is good at things that are sort of 10 times bigger than 5 times bigger than it's maybe one day, but it's not something that I'm going to go after right now.
Any other questions?
All right.